Thank you so much, Scott. So next up is an after-election panel looking at the state of Virginia, featuring Rodney Holcombe and Trent Woloveck, moderated by Shanita Pinney. Give them a hand as they make their way up to the stage, everybody. Is this thing still working? Cool. And just so everybody knows, this one is particularly close to my heart as a native Virginian, so pay close attention.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for making this a quite full room. I was a little nervous about being on this early, but we're all excited. It's been a few years since we've been excited about, new markets opening up. We didn't see legalization efforts on the ballot last year, or this year rather, but we do have something to look forward to in the state of Virginia. So I'm gonna start our panel off with a question for the both of you. And I'd just like to know, what are your biggest takeaways post-election in Virginia?
Well, I'll just say, starting out, as someone who lives here in DC, it'll be nice to be surrounded fully by adult use states. If I go north, south, east, west, I can hit an adult use state. That is not the case when I was an undergrad here in DC over 10 years ago. So that I'm very excited about. We finally have access coming in, I think, a major way. And at a time when, as Shanita said, we have not seen a lot of movement on this front. And the largest state since, 2023 has been, Ohio? And so this is the biggest thing we've seen. This is a real opportunity where now millions more people will have access to a legal regulated product, where many, many millions of dollars too will be generated for the state. And we know so many states are facing budget gaps and deficits. And so this is a real opportunity for commerce, for entrepreneurship, for equity. And so I am just eternally excited. And I think, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but access to cannabinoids and to THC products are higher than ever, and I think we've seen that quite closely with the experiment that is hemp over the last 7 years. And so I'm hopeful that Virginia can really be a shining example of what access to all of these products will look like in just a very meaningful and measured way.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for Ignite for putting on an exceptional conference, 2 in a couple weeks here. So, very fortunate. It's good to see renewed energy into the space after quite a few wins the last couple weeks for the state-regulated cannabis businesses. Here in Virginia, obviously big news at the beginning of November with Abigail Spanberger winning. She'll become governor here in early January. With also the House remaining Democrat. They actually picked up 13 seats, which I think is overlooked by a lot of folks. Speaker Scott has done a spectacular job from a leadership perspective to make sure that happened. And so you're seeing a lot of really positive momentum for Virginia. And I would say it's actually super interesting to watch because we've seen over the last, let's call it 10 plus years now, people go to the extremes. One way with Republicans or conservativeness, the other way with liberals. But what you saw in 2025 here in Virginia, which is a very good measuring ground for the U.S. as a whole, a moderate Democrat win against a very conservative Republican. And so I think that speaks volumes. You have a speaker that's extremely moderate, Democrat, and you saw a lot of his people, come that way, and that's why they've picked up 13. That's why they picked up 13 seats. And so I think it's super interesting to watch it as a microcosm of where politics go in the U.S. over the coming years, at least one would hope. And so what does that mean for cannabis? It means a market that's a $4 billion market, quoted by JLARC. So that's all the economic people that get in a room and do studies for the legislator. They said it's a $4 billion market, 9 million people. And so we think that's a huge opportunity to where, we're kind of doing a run rate of $180 million as a medical market here. And so let's just call it 200 million. So you're looking at a 20x growth over the next, let's call it, 3 to 5 years here in the Commonwealth, or just over the river in Virginia. So it's a really exciting time, a great market with a lot of opportunity. This has been done 24 other times now, and so we're at a unique spot to be able to craft legislation that takes the best of both worlds, all the lessons learned, and be able to implement that, over the next 8 months as we get geared up for adult use. Oh, by the way, I'm pretty sure this is true, but I don't know of any other state that's actually had an adult use bill that's gotten up and out of the legislature only to have the governor veto it twice. So it's going to feel really good when it gets signed into law here come April.
So let's talk about that. We are not starting from scratch. We have legislators that have worked this issue. There are proposals ready to go. We know the General Assembly meets for a very short time. So what do we need to do to prepare for a smooth transition and a startup that doesn't remind us of years past, where it was years before businesses came online and consumers actually had access?
Yeah, I think, for us, we've had a general framework actually laid out and passed, like I said, the last 2 years. Something that has been, worked through, discussed with all the stakeholders in the state, medical operators, hemp folks, social equity, and just looking to the north in Maryland, I think has done a better job than most states on that transition to adult use. And so, we've seen markets do it a litany of different ways. I think, here in Virginia, where we had full decriminalization July 1st of 2021, we've seen the illicit market step in and fill the adult use sales gap. And so it's time for the regulated market to grow and step into that demand here in the Commonwealth. And so over in the Commonwealth, I guess I should say. But we think that if you look at a state like Maryland, which did $67 million in the first month, versus a New York that did $33 million in the first 6 months. So you're talking about $420 million versus $33 million. And when you do like a 10% or a 15% tax rate, you actually generate more tax than they did revenue in markets like that. And so in a world where the federal government just cut Medicaid and SNAP benefits, states are searching for money, and cannabis is a spectacular way to help fill that gap.
I think so many considerations have to, of course, be made as they move toward this package that'll have to make it across the line. And I think the rapidness with which this happens is all going to be so critical. As my co-panelist just said, the longer we wait and the longer this timeline is, the more time you have for the illicit market to really take even a stronger hold in the state where it is already extraordinarily prevalent. So yeah, we have to look north to Maryland, where it took, less than 3 months or so for the market to actually, or maybe a little over 3 months, for the market to actually flip to adult use. And there, of course, there are a lot of considerations. It's like, do we allow the medical operators to go first just to get folks in the door, and then we begin to dole out licenses shortly thereafter? That decision needs to be made very quickly so that we will know exactly when this thing launches. I think, too, considerations around taxation, for example. It's obviously a great revenue source, but we certainly don't want to be in a position, like many other states, that we've even seen this year, that have raised their taxes to such a degree that the illicit market has no choice but to take hold again. And so you see Michigan, you see even Maryland raise their taxes this year. A lot of states have done that, and that's not the direction we want to go in. So just, a moderate tax rate, a moderate tax scheme is going to be important. I also think, the way in which we actually dole out licenses will be important. So are we maybe holding a tranche just for social equity? Is that a consideration that's being made here? So, a lot needs to still go into the calculation on what a perfect market looks like. But I mean, we have Maryland, we have Missouri, we have so many other jurisdictions that have done this right and have flipped relatively quickly. So we have to follow that very closely.
Yeah, and one last point I'd make on on Virginia, which is something pretty unique. Delegate Krizik and Senator Aird have led a cannabis kind of roundtable, if you will. I forget what they call it exactly, but
Commission, I think.
Yeah, the commission. Thank you. Being able to hold public hearings, get feedback from all the stakeholders, and so I think they've done actually a spectacular job, something very unique, to where they continue to take input from the general public about what the programs should or could look like. So I think Virginia's, the delegation, the legislators, have actually done a great job in trying to understand what the best fit looks like for the Commonwealth.
We've got about almost 10 minutes left, and I want to kind of switch gears because while the Virginia election in Virginia is a hot topic, there was not a hotter topic than the federal THC hemp ban that the president signed into law last week. So I want to
Yes, sir.
please talk to us, describe the framework for hemp in Virginia today.
Yeah, so about 3 sessions ago, 3 or 4 sessions ago, there was actually leadership done by the Commonwealth of Virginia around hemp. What was passed was a 2 milligram cap on products for THC unless you had a 25-to-1 CBD to THC ratio. And then also no synthetics were allowed to be sold in any of these products. So they have had that legislation in place for the better part of 3 years. The administration decided just a couple weeks ago to finally enforce that law through Operation Magic Dragon, a very good name in my opinion.
I love it.
And so they went in and started to enforce around folks selling illicit marijuana through the 2018 Farm Bill loophole. And so, I think you're going to continue to see enforcement around that. And, folks that behaved how they were supposed to behave and build businesses the right way get rewarded to come into the commercial adult use program and be able to capture part of that $4 billion of the market that's going to be created. And so I think we're going to, continue to see, that enforcement occur over the 12 months until the regulations kick in at the federal level. However, I'd continue to remind people, each state has a hemp bill language that's been required. Virginia got it out very early. They actually got challenged in the Fourth Circuit. They won. And so I'd be very careful if you want to continue to push the boundaries on that front.
And what I'll say is that I think these enforcement efforts are important. It's like you pass a law, you don't enforce it. I mean, is it really even effective? It's great that we're doing that. It's great that enforcement happens, but there will be a void. If we shut down these stores, people will want to go somewhere to purchase products. So it makes us have to wonder, how quickly are we rolling out this market? And is the cap on licenses enough? Do we need regulator flexibility to come back in 2 years to say, hey, let's do some market analyses. Maybe we actually need 10 more stores. So I think those sorts of decisions will have to be made. I know, obviously, a door is closed for a lot of folks. But I think this opens an even greater door for the cannabis sector broadly. I think there's, far more opportunity and so much more interest in THC products than we've ever seen before. So I think there's some real hope here. But again, I think that flexibility will be important, and we have to move at such a rapid pace to really, really create an option, or else the illicit market's going to continue doing what it does best.
Yeah, and I think an important point for folks to understand about Virginia, it's a very unique market. There's 5 health service areas where medical operators operate today. actually, like, the fifth one has been caught in litigation purgatory for 7 years now, I think, 6 or 7 years. And so there's really only 4 of us. There's not even the full 24 stores open. And so, like I said, we just implemented seed to sale tracking over the summer. And so the CCA, the Cannabis Control Authority, which is our regulator in Virginia, they're starting to put out numbers. And so, again, we've kind of seen a run rate of around, let's call it 15 to $18 million of revenue from a medical perspective. Run rating that out would be, somewhere close to $200 million. And so us as the medical operators know we cannot service anywhere remotely close to the $2 billion to $4 billion market opportunity here. And so what our goal is to work with small business operators in economically disadvantaged areas to get stood up and be able to meet the demand that we know is going to come back into the regulated market because, depending on who you listen to, and it's all online, so take it with a grain of salt, 30 to $70 billion dollars spent on cannabinoids, namely THC, and not the good kind of THC, not the synthetic THC, but Delta-9 THC that's naturally derived from the plant, is going to come back into the regulated market, just by definition. And so being able to capture that and be ready, the supply is nowhere close to what we need to do that in a lot of states. Last speaker was talking about modest growth, and we've kind of flatlined a little bit. Well, guess what? We're back to growth mode because all of that demand is coming back into the state-regulated markets. And so you're going to see that ramp up over the next 12 months, 24 months. And so we're really excited about, where we're at from a state-regulated market perspective with a lot more, wind at our back coming with some more federal normalization, Virginia flipping, Pennsylvania, hopefully, shortly thereafter. Florida's picking up steam with a ballot initiative now. And so we have a lot of different shots on goal from a public market perspective, all of those operators, all the way down to the private guys, because it flows down and it flows through. Capital markets have been closed for 3+ years. And so massive opportunity. I mean, we are sitting here, it's like Christmas morning, because get ready for growth and all the fun to come back into the state-regulated cannabis businesses.
That's how you start the morning. You got me excited about Virginia. Any pause with the lack of movement in North Carolina? They've been at it for years, over 10 years. How does that make? I mean, you spoke earlier about Maryland and D.C. and Virginia, but let's not forget about North Carolina.
North Carolina to the south. I mean, it's an interesting market. Anyone that's been there, I mean, we see the hemp-derived cannabinoid market. It is in full bloom. Restaurants are serving THC drinks. There's stuff everywhere you look. I don't know what's tested, what's not, but they've now too come up with a group that is exploring this idea more thoroughly. They are meeting, I think it's now bi-monthly, some lawmakers and other stakeholders across the industry and who work in public health and other sectors that are really trying to figure this out. My hope is that Virginia can really serve as an example to states to its south. I think North Carolina will likely only move as quickly as other states around it. So we're going to have to just, I think, continue to apply that pressure and make sure that Virginia is a success story so that folks can really see this is doable, it's workable, let's move it forward. But I think, it may take some time down in North Carolina. I think the conversation, I think, was in many ways led by the hemp issue, I'll say. And so I'd be interested really to see if an adult use bill or something actually makes it to the table next year, or do they explore medical again? But I mean, now with what's happened federally, what's happening to its north, it's time to start thinking, how do we just regulate this product, collect the taxation from it, ensure that people are actually getting safe products, and just put this whole thing to bed.
Finally, I want to close out with each of you just sharing your thoughts about what you're looking forward to – as we work towards this adult use market in Virginia.
I'm happy to start. If you haven't heard it yet, I am from the South, and my accent comes out if I have a little bit or anything. You'll start to hear it. So it's nice to be from Texas and to see, wow, like a southern state is actually doing this. We're moving in the right direction. I mean, many of the Democratic strongholds, they flipped. I mean, with the exception of Hawaii, most have flipped. So now we're looking at just different types of states. And I think this really just puts some, wind at our backs to really see this happen elsewhere. I'm excited for Alabama and their medical program to eventually get off the ground, and for Kentucky's to get off the ground. I think there's some real chance here, and I'm hopeful that these last several years of real transparently paying for the cannabis industry can turn into some success. I think that's happening. I think the regulated market is strong and will continue to get stronger, but we're just gonna have to be concerted in our concerted in our efforts rather, to really get this right. And I think Virginia has 24 examples to look at. We got to look at them closely and really determine what is right and what is wrong here to get this market right and on the right track.
Yeah, look, I'm finally excited to have a governor not veto a bill, quite frankly, and drive economic growth for all the communities that have demand for cannabis, and be able to provide them safe, tested, regulated product that's labeled correctly, and not give it right back to the illicit market. So I'm excited about the growth opportunity within communities across the Commonwealth, because that's been stifled, unfortunately, for the last 3-4 years now.
Thank you, Trent. Thank you, Rodney. Thanks, everybody.